Thank you, Annabelle, and thank you, Clean Coast, and obviously the U.S. Embassy for hosting me and allowing me to travel this long way, I guess. It's actually not too far, but thank you again for having me, and I know I think, your last stop between dinner and a drink, so I will try to make this as brief as possible, yet a little bit more fun and interactive. I know we've talked a lot about ocean plastics and marine litter, so I'll try not to repeat what too many people have said already, but what I'm going to try to do is give you a little bit more of a global scale. So if you look at the picture behind me, right here, this picture was actually taken in Peru after volunteers collected 26,000 pounds of garbage or litter off of this beach, and this is what remained. So this is not quite what we think of when we go to the beach and we think of litter. You know, the ocean and the beach mean so much to so many people, and this image really is probably not what you picture when you think about going to the beach or you think about the ocean. That looks a little better, right? That looks a little bit more what we think about, what the ocean represents to us and what the beaches represent to us. What's interesting about these two images is they represent the disparity and really the complexity of the marine litter problem or the ocean trash problem. This image is actually taken near the center of the North Pacific Gyre, what is commonly known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So not exactly probably what you were thinking of in terms of an image taken in the middle of this garbage patch. But again, what this does and what this shows is the complexity and the disparity of this problem. Obviously, we care about the impacts that it has, that ocean trash has on animals and on species. If you look a little bit, we heard a lot about seabirds, so I won't go into this in too much depth. But what this graph shows is a little bit about the amount of species and the percentage of species that marine litter has impacted. If you look at the sea turtles, granted there are only 7 species of sea turtles, so we're not working with a lot of species, but every single species of sea turtle has been known and documented by being impacted by marine litter. But it's not just about the animals. It's also about our economics, and it's about communities and our economy and wasted resources. This image is actually taken, it's a river that runs straight through the city of Manila. Not, again, probably what you were thinking, river. It looks a little different than a lot of the rivers we're used to. But again, this photo was just taken a few weeks ago. And again, it shows the complexity and the disparity of the issue. And so what you see here is really just wasted resources. And it's also not good for our economies. And perhaps more importantly, it's an issue of public health. The issue of marine litter really has all-reaching impacts and a bunch of different reasons why we should all care. And what I love and what I'm going to try to stick to a little bit is what one of our other speakers was talking about is think big, act small. And I think that is so amazing, especially when it comes to the issue of marine litter, in that it's this massive issue, but yet it has the ability, and we have the ability, by through small actions, making a big impact. So I'm from Ocean Conservancy. I think we've well established that. Overall, organization works worldwide, especially in terms of clean beaches and working for trash-free seas. We also work on other issues, sustainable fisheries, smart ocean planning, restoring ecosystems. But really what is innate in our DNA at Ocean Conservancy are beach cleanups. We are lucky enough to work with volunteers from around the globe to participate in, again, local community action through beach cleanups. This past fall, so September of 2014, over 560,000 people came out and participated in the International Coastal Cleanup. And again, this is over 92 countries. And really these numbers, I think, speak for themselves. Over 16 million pounds of trash, and again, all around the globe. If you think about it, these volunteers covered the distance along their coastlines of more than 500 marathons, and that's just sheerly impressive. And again, the map shows the disparity and the diversity of the marine debris issue. One of the favorite things and one of the things that collects and hits media is what are some of the craziest things that volunteers find every year. And pretty much as diverse as the countries, the items are just as diverse in terms of ocean cleanups and beach cleanups. Everything from wigs to lawnmowers, even the kitchen sink has been found in some cleanups. So it's a really interesting issue. And how does all this happen? So how do these, how are 560,000 people mobilized? And it's really through passionate people and amazing organizations such as Clean Coast, mobilizing these volunteers at a local level to have amazingly global impacts. So we are lucky enough at Ocean Conservancy to work with over about 150 different organizations. Again, they're just amazing organizations, but really what they're doing is they're engaging and they're working with passionate volunteers and just individuals that are giving up their Saturday mornings once a year, once a month, even once a week. And so it's spectacular to think, the impact that all of these volunteers and these passionate organizations create. The first beach cleanup for Ocean Conservancy, the first international coastal cleanup, took place 30 years ago. We are celebrating our 30th cleanup, our 30th anniversary this year, September 19th. I know Clean Coast will definitely have a bunch of cleanups for you guys if you're interested. But if you think about it, it's really spectacular to think of this 30-year history. The cleanup started off the coast of Texas in the United States in 1986 at just one beach along the coast of Texas. And now 30 years later has grown into over 5,000 to 6,000 locations around the globe, including several hundred here in Ireland, massing thousands of volunteers every fall. What do the numbers of these impacts, of these individual actions and these individual impacts mean, and what are these numbers? I mean, again, they pretty much speak for themselves, but over 30 years, nearly 11 million people have come out and participated in these cleanups, collecting over 190 million pounds of trash. And when you think about it, 215 million individual items of litter. And that is just, the number continuously blows my mind. What do these 215 million items look like? We've talked a little bit about the crazy and the strange ones, but a majority of these items are items that we see, we touch, we feel, we use in our everyday lives. And if you kind of narrow it down to looking at what most of these items are made up of, it should look pretty familiar. 8 out of 10 of these items are made of plastic. This list is the top 10 items collected globally from last year's cleanup. So just in one day, most of these cleanups take place in one day of 1 year. Over 2 million cigarette butts were collected, over 1 million food wrappers, and again, 8 out of 10 of these items are composed of plastic, which altogether comprises about 80 to 90% of these items that volunteers are picking up off of their local beaches are plastic. And it's so interesting and so great is the knowledge that we have amassed over the past 30 years of volunteers coming out and collecting this litter off of their local beaches has now just been underscored by a new study that was just published in the journal Science by Dr. Jenna Janbeck and colleagues. And what this journal does is it for the first time really takes a look and it quantifies how much plastic is entering our oceans on a yearly basis. And it's pretty much a busy graphic behind me, but I want to draw your attention to this. If you average it out, it's estimated that 8 million metric tons of plastic are entering our oceans every year. And granted, that is a big, scary number, but I think if we think back to the cleanups and the action that volunteers have had over the last 30 years, we can start to divide this issue up and really think about what are the reasons these items are entering our water and our oceans to begin with, and start devising solutions. What's also interesting about this article that was just published is that a disproportionate majority of a disproportionate percentage of these 8 million metric tons is actually concentrated in about 5 to 7 countries in the Asia-Pacific region. But what it's key to remember is that it's not a particular country that is at fault here. It is not a particular region that is at fault here. It's not an Asia problem, it's a global problem. And what we're seeing is that plastics entering our ocean at this type of rate and this type of scale is actually an unintended consequence of development. A lot of these developing economies are coming into a place at their development in which consumption is skyrocketing, and it good means. Plastic, it's really good at what it's designed to do. It keeps our food fresh. It's lightweight in terms of transportation. What it's not really designed to do is end up in the ocean. And so that's where we see our problems. In these images behind me, what you see is 2 types of landfills. You have one that is in Florida, and you have one that is actually in Belize. And so if you look at the image above it, and it's a newer neighborhood in a resort town, and you would look at the image and you go, I kind of just ask you, where do you think that neighborhood's trash goes to? The landfill on the, left or the landfill on the right? Anyone? Who thinks it's on the left? No? All right. Who thinks it's on the right? Yeah. About 50-50 split in here. Interesting enough, this is an expat community in Belize. Their trash goes to this open landfill. Basically, it's a mangrove swamp in Belize, and this is just only a mile or two from our coastline. And so again, what you're seeing is this is an unintended consequence in which the development rate is outpacing our infrastructure and our waste infrastructure rates. So what do we need to do? We really need to look at unique solutions that fit into what the unique characteristics of each of these countries are. There is really not a silver bullet. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution. But if we look at the issue holistically and we look at each point in the waste infrastructure and the waste stream where we all can make an impact. Obviously there's your normal litter. And then if we look down the waste stream and down the cycle, there are points in which we all can play a difference, and regardless of our role. So going off of that kind of holistic approach that's needed at each of those points of leakage for waste, one of the key points at Ocean Conservancy and our Trash-Free Seas team is kind of taking cues from that and applying a holistic approach to our approach at Trash-Free for Trash-Free Seas, for global Trash-Free Seas. And what we think is so great is there are points at this and throughout this integrated approach in which we all can play a difference. It doesn't matter if we are just a college student, a young kid in school wanting to participate in beach cleanup, or if we're the CEO of a major corporation. There are points in this approach in which we all have a role to play. And again, remembering that the trash and marine litter is one of our issues that face our ocean that we do. We know the solutions, we know the causes, and it's something we all can have a significant impact on in terms of its solution, regardless of who we are. So thank you again for having me, and yeah.